Welcome back to The Mindful Mic, a podcast by Children's Home Counseling Services. Providing mental health care is a core part of what we do, but our mission goes beyond that. We work to educate, raise awareness, and reduce the stigma around mental health, so no child or family feels shame, embarrassment, or isolation when seeking support.
As we evolve, so do our programs and initiatives. We're committed to meeting families where they are, whether it's through telehealth, school-based counseling, nature-based, and animal-assisted integrated services, or in-person counseling at both of our Boise and Meridian locations. Thanks to the support of our generous donors and community partners, Children's Home Counseling Services continues to be a place for all children every single day, no matter their circumstances.
And with the school year just around the corner, we're launching our back-to-school supply drive to help students start the year strong. If you'd like to donate backpacks or other school supplies, please contact me, Grace, or visit our website at children'shomeidaho.org for a full list of what's needed. Donations are welcome through July 30th.
Then join us Thursday, July 31st for our Backpack Bash on the front lawn of the historic Children's Home. Families in need can stuff their backpacks with supplies, and everyone is invited to stay for free popcorn, cotton candy, lemonade, and lawn games. It's a fun way to support kids in our community and celebrate the start of a new school year.
Now, let's get into today's episode. We're sitting down with Christy Garcia Dunn, LMSW, a children's home clinician who provides mental health support both in schools and in our clinics. As a passionate member of and advocate for the BIPOC community, Christy shares her insight on school-based therapy, cultural connection, and what it means for children to truly be seen and supported.
Okay. Hello and welcome, Christy, to our podcast.
Hello, and thank you.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you here. So why don't you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your role here at the Children's Home and also your role with your school-based program that you are a part of.
Yeah, so again, my name is Christy Garcia Dunn. I'm a licensed master of social work here at the Children's Home. I am also a first-generation Latina, born and raised in Idaho. So my parents had immigrated from Nicaragua and Mexico. So that's just kind of like tidbit, you know. So as a school-based clinician, what I really do is provide individual and family therapy to clients at the school. This really works to reduce issues that come up with transportation and even like family schedules. Especially working in an elementary school, kids aren't driving themselves. And a lot of the folks that I work with have resettled as refugees here in the community and also come from single parent homes or low income backgrounds. So it has been really awesome to just be physically there at the school and kind of help bridge that gap.
It's such a great, I love that program that we have here, and I'm so glad that you are here to do it because you're so fantastic at it. And you've been here for,
a little over a year and a half, but I was an intern.
I was going to say you started out as an intern, another program that we have, our internship program, and this is, you are a perfect example of why we have a successful internship program, because then we have these wonderful interns that come in, and now you're doing our school-based program. So, yeah.
So I know a little bit later on, we'll get more into your school-based counseling and what that looks like and some questions, but I'd love for you to share just what drew you to mental health and led you to become a social worker, just your background, who you are.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny. My mom is also a social worker. So I'm the daughter of a social worker, and she has been working in schools for like 15 plus years. Wow. In the Treasure Valley, from Nampa to Meridian and Boise. And so just kind of growing up in that environment, she was always taking us out to her volunteer opportunities and has been whispering throughout the years, Mija, or like, daughter, when are you going to join? And I'm like, I don't know, Mom. But as I was kind of working at the St. Alphonsus International Clinic after undergrad, I really recognized that social work blood runs real thick in me. And so I basically was like, okay, I can't keep running. I need to actually go towards my strengths. And so with working with kids too and like teens, it is such a special population. I feel like many of the children that I have met with always blow my mind. They're just so insightful and creative, and sometimes even get me thinking. So I'm like, that wisdom that just like inherently is within kids is amazing to be able to foster. And then at my last job, or my first one at a graduate school, I worked primarily with adults. So one of the themes that I kind of recognized was that a lot of the childhood traumas or issues they had back when they were also in elementary school or, in their youth was still kind of affecting their day to day as an adult. And so I thought, like, oh my gosh, wouldn't this be amazing if I could, by some miracle, have like intervened earlier on? And so this is kind of what drew me back to the children's home to be like, okay, we're working with the kids, and our opportunity to kind of help resource them and help them kind of become more resilient can start way, way earlier.
I love that you said that. I think that's such an important point to kind of drive home with, especially with parents. It's never too young. It's never, like maybe that are questioning it. That's a perfect example. What you're doing is helping these kids now, so then they get older, they have the tools and the resources to get through what they need to get through, or they're also maybe probably more open and can talk more, and they know it's not such a bad thing. So I think that is so great that that's how you got your start, and that's what you were focused on. Working with parents or adults led to wanting to work with kids and stuff. I think that's so important.
Yeah, and even as you kind of like drop the name parents, it's so important to kind of have them integrated into the process as well, because from a social work perspective, we're often looking at the big picture. Even though we're doing one-on-one counseling, family sessions and stuff like that, we're kind of seeing the whole network and how it affects the child. So if we can kind of help bring in the parents and welcome them into the process, I think it is so much more beneficial, and the kids get buy-in to the process as well.
I think that also goes hand in hand with the school-based programs, because it's just like another layer of that system around the child, right? And now you have the support of the parents to be in counseling, but also that your school environment is supporting you just by giving you a space there to do what you do. It's all those layers. Yeah, it's great.
Feels less like a doctor's visit and more of like, oh, I'm just going to go take a little break over here to chat with Christy for a while.
Well, and I think, because we're talking about the school-based program and being there, we do deal a lot with not being able, transportation is a huge thing. And I love that you are there and you're right down the hall, and that the kiddos can just go down there and you build a relationship with them, and they feel comfortable because they see you around probably. And I think it's just fantastic to have you there.
Yeah, it's kind of in some regards a double-edged sword too, because some kids will be so excited and they're like, I'm gonna go see my counselor, and other kids are like, I didn't do anything wrong, I promise. So
like, I'm not that kind of counselor.
Yeah, so there's a couple different layers to it, but I feel like with where the school is really supporting mental health, and even the school district really pushing for more community-based counseling to enter the school, I think it's amazing, like what they're already doing to get connected.
Yeah. So let's talk about what this month represents, BIPOC Month.
All right.
Why don't you give us just some clarity, a lot of people, on what it is, what it stands for, and why we're here to talk about it this month and recognize it and celebrate it, And all other months too, it should be as well. But
Mm-hmm.
let's hear from you on that.
Okay. To be honest, I didn't even know that BIPOC month was a thing until I became an adult, and I was like, whoa, what? So BIPOC stands for Black, Indigenous, People of Color. So when we're kind of putting that together with the mental health aspect, is we are providing kind of more support to um, families and individuals from these different diverse communities. So living in Idaho, it can be challenging and kind of feel isolating, as you can really quite easily tell who's part of the minority. And it seems sometimes as though the acceptance and celebration aspect is kind of missing at times with the cultural differences. So this BIPOC Mental Health Month to me just is an opportunity for that to be celebrated, the different cultural aspects, and to kind of recognize like, hey, it's not just like these big like celebrations that everyone knows about that's one day. It's like every day should still have those bits of celebration.
Yeah, absolutely. And can you talk to some of the unique mental health challenges faced by these communities and why it's so important to associate not only celebration and representation this month, but also the tie to mental health?
Yeah, so I think speaking from experience, I, being a person of color, as a Latina, really realize that a common denominator is stigma. There's been so much history of like distrust with different communities, and I feel like that is still something that we're trying to work on as a whole. And then accessibility for sure, like especially living here in Idaho, like rural communities, even like language access or having a clinician that shares similar like cultural elements or like looks like you, speaks like you, is definitely something that can be hard to find. And so just valuing those elements and like, okay, like it's not just because they're trying to find something that's like a needle in a haystack, but just kind of finding more representation and acceptance like as a baseline.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. And you talked a little bit about the stigma and how that plays a big role in this conversation. I know as someone, my family, I'm half Japanese. My dad is Japanese, and in our culture, I know there's a lot of stigma around mental health and seeking help and viewing needing mental health support as a weakness a lot of times. And I know that is a similar sentiment in other cultures. And how do you, as a counselor and someone who does this as a profession, navigate that with your clients if they themselves are feeling that stigma, or maybe it's coming from their family members? How do you navigate that?
Honestly, I always start with normalizing and validating those experiences because they have been passed on for so many generations, and it is a newer thing. It doesn't feel completely new, but it truly, truly is. And so kind of letting them know like, hey, it's normal to kind of worry and like be cautious. And when you're at least coming to see me and our agency, we do our best to really focus on partnering with families and the child to support and honor like their individual stories. I primarily kind of focus on the rapport building because that how would I even call it? It's like the high context cultures and really taking the time to know them is so important to fostering that relationship and kind of building on that trust. Of course, understanding dignity and like providing choice.
Making a connection, right? Like I think that's kind of like also what you're saying is seeing someone that's of similar culture background as them and being able to connect on that I think is so important.
Definitely. And like even with my own cultural experiences, having a little bit of like Central American culture kind of in my family, and then Mexican culture, recognizing that not everybody from those cultures is the same. We all have different experiences, and like doing my own research, like kind of approaching stuff with humility and knowing like, okay, I know that I might have good intentions behind some of the things, but if I can kind of open up opportunities to learn and grow, I think it's so much more helpful for many of the families that we serve.
That's a great point, that there are differences between individuals and families within every culture as well. I think that's such a good point, and something that you think would kind of be obvious, but that really I realized taking some public health courses in my master's program is how we are trying to change the language between cultural competency and cultural responsiveness, because of the fact that competency kind of implies that you've mastered your knowledge about this culture, right? When in reality, you're always learning and always learning new things and adapting to the environment and the individuals that you're working with. I love that you said that. Yeah, it's continuously learning.
And what would you say, to those parents out there that maybe might not find representation because this is Idaho, right? The pool's small as far as counselors that they might get. I mean, I think that we also we need more social workers as it is, right? So finding representation, how do they find representation? Or if they don't find exact representation, but what they should be looking for with a counselor, for their child or their family.
Yeah, I think definitely having someone that's open to both kind of learning and not pushing their own biases or like worldviews on the families is really important. Again, kind of honoring their culture as it remains. Being okay to like kind of push back every once in a while too, with like, hey, you said this. Maybe your intentions weren't to be hurtful, but in that moment it did hurt. And so kind of getting that bravery to kind of bring it up as well. There's a lot of different networking opportunities to find some of those therapists. I know Psychology Today is always like a go-to. And then word of mouth, obviously. Like sometimes you can get referrals from trusted folks.
And I would say, when you go to, a doctor and, you want the doctor that fits your needs, and you have to be your own advocate. And if you don't like a doctor, you find someone new that fits your needs. And I think that it's important to tell people that it's the same, with counseling and therapy. Like if you find a therapist that might not fit, or you might be questioning like, well, I don't really know if this is the right fit for my child, it's okay to, shop around or whatever, look for somebody that does fit their needs and stuff. So I think it's important kind of, not to just be like, I'm going to hurt feelings, or this might be, or I'm going to stay and see, it's okay.
Yeah, because often, I mean, especially like in diverse cultures, there is kind of that power dynamic that's happening. And then there's also the element of like, oh, I don't want to be rude. And kind of knowing like it is one of the normal parts of the process, like you said so well, and knowing like, hey, maybe in this season, this counselor is super helpful for me. And maybe down the line, I might need to kind of go a different direction. It's just kind of part of the ebb and flow of therapy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm curious how you would say your own cultural identity influences your work and who you are as a therapist.
Yeah, so I feel like I sprinkle little bits, not always on purpose. It's just who I am. So like some of it is like in the art that I display in my office. You might have noticed different cultures represented. And then kind of knowing like, hey, in those moments I can provide choice to self-disclose essentially in moments that it might be helpful for the client, and be like, hey, I noticed that you were saying that these family dynamics are really, really hard, especially as someone who is BIPOC. And so having those opportunities to be like, okay, if you want this, like, I will also contribute to what my experiences have been. There have been times in the past where the language barrier has been a little bit of a challenge, and like there's been misunderstandings, just based off how the system works, right? Like, even as Americans, like, we're not really trained as to how the medical system works or a mental health system. And so I remember I had an encounter back in the day where a family was like, "Why are you giving me this bill? Do you hate my people?" And I was like, "Oh no, I'm so sorry. No, I do not hate your people. This is from the big system that's giving it to you, and I want to do everything I can to help you." And so in that moment, it kind of, they went a little further and kind of being hurt by just the whole process of like, I thought I could trust you as my provider here. And through kind of sharing about my family's migration story and our struggles, they were like, "Oh, like, you do get it." And I was like, yeah, and it's still not fair that the system is really lacking in some regards.
Yeah, and complex and difficult to understand even for people who have been experiencing it their whole lives. There's still things that I'm learning about it going through life. It's complex. And, yeah.
So in the BIPOC community, what, as far as mental health, we've talked a little bit about the challenges just kind of on the surface, but really diving in to, how we can help as a community, and how we can support, the BIPOC community and with mental health struggles and stuff. Any advice or suggestions, or, what you're really seeing out there? You're talking about bullying, bullying, as we know, leads to thoughts of, suicide or not wanting to be here. And we talked about, we had Savannah on here about the LGBTQI community and how even if we're not part of that community, we still play a role here in Idaho to support and recognize that. So I guess that's a long way of me saying is, what can we do?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's so many different directions I could take it, right? And I think one of the main things that I kind of think of is kind of going back to recognizing that each individual has their own culture and story that we got to honor. And instead of trying to conform to whatever American standards, kind of knowing that we can integrate in this almost like melting pot. I don't really like that reference.
Okay. Really quick mishap. So we are still beginners at this podcast thing. But this is our only mishap so far. We accidentally cut Christy off. We didn't mean to. Sorry about that. We were recorded everything, and then noticed that we just got cut off. And so we're going to have to repeat some of the amazing things that you were talking about. And this got cut off at a really critical time because we were talking about how the community can help, and what to look out for and what to do. And so I'm just going to let you finish that thought.
Yeah. So I think if I were to put like a cute little tiny bow on it, a more polished version is just recognizing that us in the community, we have a responsibility to provide dignity, choice, and like build that trust with the BIPOC community. And that is always kind of rooted in trauma, like informed interactions, and really celebrating and recognizing the culture. So with that, like, don't be forcing people to tell their story from being in really difficult places. There's a time and place, obviously, but kind of create space to welcome them and letting them know, like, hey, I'm going to be, like, sure to use dignifying language even, and keep on learning and knowing that, I'm not perfect. but I want to do better. And so if we can do better, some of the buzzwords that we had talked about earlier was like illegal. That is a really rough one for me to kind of hear. And like, no person is illegal. So if we can move closer to using undocumented when we're referring to folks that are undocumented, that would be amazing. And then sometimes, like refugee status, folks kind of just blanket call folks that resettled as refugees just refugees. But we want to kind of go with person first language. So kind of knowing, okay, this families that resettled as refugees, rather than being like, oh yeah, my little refugee family over here. And then kind of also knowing that each person really has their own way of identifying. So being open to any like variations within those populations is also helpful. Really asking and listening.
Right.
Could you give a couple more examples of that person first language? I know in our first recording you had said a couple really good points. If you could just expand on that a little.
Yeah, so to be honest, I'm kind of forgetting what those were because we're here a day later.
So
But, often when I was working with neurodiverse populations, we would kind of learn about like autism and ADHD. So people would be like saying, yeah, my autistic friend. And so really putting person first is kind of flipping that around. So my friend or person who has autism. And then what was the other example that I had yesterday? I totally spaced.
Well, I mean, I think just like also what you're saying, we touched on this also with Savannah on the LGBTQ community about not saying, oh, my gay friend, or right? It's
yes.
the same thing. It's like, okay, this is not this isn't defining who the person is, right? Or, it's my smart kid or my playful kid or something like that. Like, there's other ways we don't want to, my refugee friend or, this is.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. You're helping me remember that, like, when I was in graduate school, one of my professors in my diversity class was like, okay, so many people identify with, like, the adjectives before the person. And so they're like, oh, yeah, my Black friend, my Latina friend, my whatever it might be. And so she was like, flip it around. Talk to people and tell them, like, oh yeah, my white friend Colby, or and it really kind of brings awareness to like, oh yeah, why do I think I have to add this other element of identifier? Like, Colby's Colby, Grace is Grace, Christy's Christy. So yeah,
I think when you flip it around like that, it makes people definitely pause and be like, oh, you're right. Why do I always have to define them or use those use words before it's when you think about it that way, it does give you a pause. You're like, oh, yeah, I don't say my blonde friend or, it's just.
Yeah, so kind of shifting back to recognizing the individual.
Right. An individual as an individual.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And more of their personality, who they are.
So switching gears a little bit to the school-based side of what you do in your job, we talked a little bit in the beginning about what that entails and what that means, but I'd love if you could just give an explanation of the difference between what you do as a school-based clinician versus the typical school counselor that I think probably many people would think of when they think of a school counselor.
Yeah. First off, I just think everyone who is a counselor currently in the schools, like, bless your hearts. You guys are doing amazing work.
I agree.
There's so many hats that they have to wear. At the school that I'm working at, I think of Heidi Goodmanson, who is the counselor, and she does everything from, like, teaching classes on specific topics to even, like, setting up 504s and working with teachers and their network to help them make the kid academically successful. And then kind of she partners with the school psychologist that does more enhanced versions of the IEP or the individualized education plan. And so when you kind of look at the school system, they're having to jump in like in so many different places to fill gaps as needed. And so for me, as a community-based counselor, basically, I'm going into the school and providing like supplemental support. So maybe Heidi can only meet with folks for like 10-15 minutes to check in, or has to do like groups to kind of resolve issues in kind of smaller windows. But I'm able to actually like schedule these appointments and have these set times to meet with kids on a weekly basis, or even more if needs kind of arise.
It's more of an ongoing, rather than there's a situation outside that's happening.
Exactly.
It's going to counsel about. This is like a very like intake process, and then set up weekly or bi-weekly meetings.
Yeah, so it's definitely, I get to be part of a system, but I'm not in it. So I'm kind of able to tailor the needs of kids more specifically.
And how would you say that enables you to respond differently to the needs of your clients versus being in a traditional clinical setting?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so amazing to have like access, for one, because transportation, like we've said before, is really a big barrier for many families. And scheduling, oh my gosh, there's so many kids sometimes that folks have, and just kind of being able to just be there and available on site, to like pull the kids from class and see them, and also knowing that they're open to coming to counseling because I'm there in their space.
Right.
And they're like, oh yeah, like this doesn't feel scary like going to a doctor's office. Maybe it's a lot more relaxed in that.
Yeah,
regard.
I think the scheduling too, right? And we see it here all the time during the school year. Summer, you can get people, open up their schedules, but in the school year, everybody wants that sweet spot of 3:30, 4 or 5, and there's only so much. And then during the day, our counselors are more open because everybody wants it after school. They don't want to disrupt, which I will say, schools are okay. You can take your kid out of school to get them counseling. Let's just say that right there, and then get on a waiting list for later. But scheduling, yes, just not having to pull them out of school
can be so helpful.
Makes a huge difference.
And like it really is great to see the buy-in of the community that the kid is in there with, like the principals, even teachers, like lunch duties. And it's, I don't know, it's just such a special place, and I'm so glad I'm there.
So what age groups are you working with? You're elementary school, right? Okay.
Yeah, so at the schools, I'm working with mostly first graders through sixth grade. So we're thinking like 6 years old to about 12, 13. And like I can still see younger ones as well. It just is how my referrals have worked out, because I got like preschool and some of the schools that also meet there, like with the YMCA. And I do see some clients at the main office as well. You might know from what we've been talking about that I am a Latina, so I was very fortunate to also be bilingual. And so I've been seeing a lot of folks here at the office that are Spanish speaking.
Yeah. I'm glad that you said that, because you are available to see kiddos, not just at the school. So you're very busy going back and forth, but yes, you're also available here, which is so great.
And what kind of issues would you say right now among that age group that you specialize in are the challenges that you're seeing that age range is experiencing the most right now?
Yeah, honestly, there's so many different elements that kind of go on, but I would say like the biggest ones I see frequently are anxiety and peer related. And so sometimes kids will kind of hold back at school, and they'll try to like mask and show like I'm good, I can do this. And they might explode at home later because they're holding it inside so easily. And so kind of with the emotional regulation there in the moment can be really, really hard, and sometimes hold them back from doing things that they love, which kind of stinks, like even as an adult, right? When we're so worried about the what ifs, that's a really hard and common experience that a lot of these kids are getting. especially with technology and access to social media, even at elementary school level. There can be a lot of like drama or like bullying, even, which is really sad. And when we kind of encourage parents to kind of be more present in their kids' lives and connect with them, it really helps foster those opportunities for communication if it is happening. Because I know for me as a child, I was like, ooh, I don't know if this is like an issue that I'll take to mom and dad. Like maybe I'll just take care of it myself. And then I'm like, oh, I can't do anything. So when the kids are able to reach out to trusted adults around them, parents, counselor, whatever it might be, teachers, I think it can kind of help them through that.
Yeah.
But
I think it's important that I love the point about, excuse me, about kids hold it together until they get home. I see that with mine so much, right? And then they get home, there's just like this explosion, and just because they're trying to hold it together. So having them go and see somebody and know how to regulate it and be able to, like, you know, not have to hold it together at school. And because that's got to be a lot of build up for them. And if they have a place they can go to and talk to somebody and regulate or help them through the anxiety that they're feeling and the pressure during school, so they don't have to hold it together, I think does the child, the parents, the family, everybody.
yeah, and I know like a common struggle for parents is like, but they don't want to talk to me, and I'm like, I understand that, and sometimes it means like getting creative with the way that we talk to our kids. I think we might have talked about this yesterday.
Dinner time, important, in the rose and the thorns, and
Yeah, I think if you wouldn't mind expanding on that, I think that would be super helpful because I think it did get cut off. But yeah, share some of that advice.
Yeah, so basically, you know, open-ended questions are super helpful, and not like yes, no kind of questions, more that are like, tell me about a time. And so the other element that I had brought up yesterday is getting creative. So I know it can be a little hard sometimes, but the kids are so knowledgeable and are so excited about the things they're passionate about. And so maybe approaching them and being like, hey, what's something that you learned today or thought about that you're like, oh my gosh, mom and dad would never understand. And can you tell me a little bit more about it so I can know what it is? Like even talking about Minecraft and Roblox, those video games, I know it can feel like a lot is coming your way, but those small looking things to us as adults are actually big things to the kids. So really taking time to see them, hear them, notice them, I think is super helpful.
Yeah, you make such a great point about that the things that we might think are silly as adults are really meaningful to your child, and that's a perfect opportunity to connect. Is there anything else that you would say you wish other parents or caregivers, teachers understood about children's mental health or just children in general?
Yeah, I mean, kids are amazing, and they are so wise and have so many different like deep thoughts and feelings, and kind of recognizing those as strengths is really important. And I would say just like celebrating who your kid is. I know a lot of us have hopes of like, ooh, I want my kid to do X, Y, and Z just like I did. But knowing that like them being a little bit different and choosing different paths is okay. And just being consistent in their life, and really showing them like, hey, I love you, I'm here, and I care.
So we're not in all schools, we're just in a few, but we're hoping that our program will grow and, you know, continue to expand. What, you know, the schools that we don't have anyone in, or there's not a counselor, what would you say to parents listening that don't have you in the schools, right? They have their counselor, right. But what advice would you give for them? They might be lacking the transportation, or be able to get them there. So they're like, oh, this sounds great. You're in the schools. I love it, but not my school.
Yeah.
Right. And that we might not have an answer for that. We're working on that. Anyway. Yeah.
Like, what can you do? Like, I think, if you are already getting connected with a therapist or a counselor somewhere, I think being open to the process and like also willing to do your own work is really important. I mean, there's only so much I can do as a therapist, because I see them for maybe an hour a week. And so really taking the time to practice like your own emotional regulation and being able to model that for your kid can be super duper helpful. And like knowing like, okay, there are different seasons for therapy. And so maybe it's not working right now, but we'll revisit it later because different things kind of come and go. Does that kind of answer your question?
No, yeah, it does. And I think, we will continue to put resources on our website, stuff that you've talked about we need to add so that people kind of have a guide and can get help. Because both topics have been, tremendous, been a great help. And I just love everything. And I'm sorry you had to repeat yourself. But, we're really driving it in.
Yeah. Well, I told my mom and dad, I was like, I have an opportunity to give you a shout out. Thanks, Mom.
Oh, yeah. Give your shout outs out now, right?
Yeah.
Just don't tell them how I screwed up.
Yeah. We'll see if they.
No, yeah. I mean, thank you. And it's interesting because we were talking about before you left that, you were talking about your mom being a therapist, and we were, we're talking about Savannah got into it because her mom, another clinician of ours, her mom was in it and stuff too. So shout out to the moms paving the way for our younger therapists coming in, and because we need you guys. Absolutely. So, well, I think we got it covered this time.
Yeah.
Is there any last minute words of advice or anything that you have to give?
Yeah, I would say my last words of wisdom might just be like, no, it's okay to ask for help. Yeah. And that the first step of being a pioneer to breaking intergenerational trauma patterns is showing up.
Right.
And like knowing that you are known, heard, and seen, even if it's just by us, even if it's just one person in the child's life, it really changes their outcome. So you got this. We believe in you. And if you need help, come on and reach out.
Love that. Thank you so much, Christy. Thanks for being here today and
Thank you.
sharing all that you did. We appreciate you and all that you do.
I know. I think we ended off the last one as saying, we hope you come back. We didn't mean come back this soon, the next day. But we really do. We do want you to come back, but we'll give you a little bit more time.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Oh, and I was thinking about it. I might give you some links, Colby, to some resources, because I know there's some folks that are like, how can I get more involved in the BIPOC community and supporting them? Poder of Idaho is always like my go-to, so I'll make sure to send you all that stuff.
Yeah, you heard that. She will send it to me, and we'll get it on our website, children'shomeidaho.org. And thanks for coming in. Yeah, we appreciate you.
Thanks, Christy.
Thanks. All right. That was so great and insightful. I loved having her here. I always love having one of our own clinicians because I feel like I learned so much from them.
Me too. I definitely took away from a lot from that episode, and I hope everyone else did too.
Yeah. So make sure to tune in for also our next episode coming up the first Wednesday in August as we talk to Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Idaho, Angela Sanchez. And that's going to be a great one too.
Yeah, and be sure to follow us wherever you're listening, leave a comment.
All right. Talk to you later.